So, buddy,
What's up,
listen,
man?
this week, everybody's been talking about Google VO3. And
Yes.
if people aren't familiar with it, Google VO3 is the first, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the first AI video generator that also creates sound. And it's
Yep.
almost photorealistic at this point. What are your
It,
thoughts on that, brother?
man, let's talk about the history of just the AI video and how fast it's progressing. Because right now it's progressing as fast as humans can make it better. So
Yeah.
imagine when it can make itself better. That's another topic of conversation because it's not sentient yet. But so VO started out 2 years ago, which I can't believe it's only been 2 years since the Will Smith spaghetti video came out.
Yeah,
Will Smith eating spaghetti where he's all like, excuse me, he's all like crazy looking and morphing around and eating that spaghetti and looking weird. And like that video blew up because it was like, oh my God, look at what AI can create. And you know what it reminded me of? Remember back in the day on like N64 and PlayStation, and it was like, look how good these graphics are. I can't imagine them getting any better. That's what it felt like then. Look what it's creating, and just imagine what it can do. Well, usually there's like a 10-year gap before imagine what it can do is here. Now VO3 is so photorealistic that depending on the scene and what they create with it, you cannot tell if it's real or not. Now, if you have an eye for AI, you'll still be able to see a few things every now and then. The way they move, like the way like they interact with their environment. Yeah, the way they walk, but like fingers are getting better. They have fight scenes that look terrible, but they're not like morphing into each other, which is big. But like you said, the sounds. It has sound design. It has voices. It's crazy.
I think now that there's sound, that's where people's brains fill in the gaps for them, right? Because before it was just silent. But when you can hear an actual sound, that's when your brain fills in the gap. And furthermore, if you slide these in between regular videos, I don't think we're going to actually notice that they're AI if they're reasonable videos. It's one thing if somebody's saying, watch this video, it's AI, can you tell it's fake? It's another thing when you're actually watching regular videos and you're scrolling through a timeline and then one of these videos pops up. And you might continue scrolling past it, you may stop, it may be something to capture your attention. But I don't think at that point the average person is going to realize that it's AI based on what I'm seeing so far.
So, you know who just lost their job? Commercial actors. Because a company can now generate an ad. I mean, they can generate 365 ads within 12 hours that are then a different ad every day for a year, with all actors with perfect voice acting, with perfect acting, and it's really like, because I've got a friend who's an actor who I was in a church group with a few years back, and like I think about him and I'm like, man, like it's going to be so much tougher for legitimate actors to have work. And I don't think people will buy into watching AI actors in movies and TV shows. I don't think anybody wants that, and they're going to try it. There's no doubt about it. They're going to try to create that.
Some of the videos I've seen already, like that's pretty good.
And people aren't going to subscribe to that. I don't want to watch fake people. I just don't. And so I don't know why.
Man. At the rate Netflix cancels TV shows, maybe if you can guarantee a show to last potentially. But
think about
all jokes aside, though, I do think, with that being said, people still connect to people. So I think there will definitely be like the one-off commercials and things like that, but people still connect to consistent, personas. And I guess there is a way to do that with AI as well, because you can capture that and continue to have the same one. But still, there's
you just gave me an idea that gave me shivers to think about, because you talked about how Netflix is always canceling shows. Think about user-generated content who can upload the first or second season of a show and say, produce season 3 for me. Here's what I want it to be about. Because like there's a show that, have you ever seen the show Firefly from the early 2000s? Oh man, it is one of the greatest TV shows ever created. It has one season and it got canceled, and then they decided to do a movie instead of a second season. Joss Whedon was the director before he was Joss Whedon, before Avengers and all that stuff. Firefly is based on it's like a space western, and it is like every character has depth. Every character has a story. It's one of the greatest series ever created. Now the graphics don't hold up super well by today's standards, but I guarantee if you watch that show, you are going to be depressed that there's not a season 2. I guarantee it. Just give it a watch. But like, thinking about a show like Firefly that never got its due because it was ahead of its time and it was underappreciated. And even to this day, there's people that are like, God, can we just bring a season 2 back? And it's almost, I mean, it's over 20 years old at this point.
Wow.
You take AI and you're like, let's create season 2. Or
Right.
like let's continue after the movie and start creating stuff with it. That stuff I would watch if it's if it's based on the actual characters, because you got to think about aging and you got to think about how actors just don't look the same because they can deep fake stuff really well. Like John Goodman in The Righteous Gemstones. I don't know if you've seen him in that, but like
I watched some skits, a couple.
But how they de-aged him, you can. It's still a little rough around the edges, but for the most part, it looks like a 40-year-old John Goodman who's close to his 70s now. So if they did that with a show that I already liked, that already existed, that would be cool. Or if they took a movie from the 80s, if they took RoboCop and they said, give us the exact same movie, don't change anything about it except AI, make the visuals look better.
More modern,
Yeah, that would be cool.
Or redo the last season of Game of Thrones. Right, like if throw that whole season.
I shouldn't cuss on TikTok, but the last freaking 3 seasons, bro.
Man, I think it was okay. 8 was like, bro, what are we doing here? Like, what's going on? Like,
they started to lose direction when they got past the books, and that was in season 4. And that's where, like, really after the Red Wedding, it started to kind of feel a little bit different, and then like season 8 and that last season, bro. Oh my god,
it was a predictable, like, kind of. You know, at each season they try to get a little bit more. Shows usually get a little bit more and more out there. I think that was the kind of what was happening with that, like as per usual. But like the last season was a complete detach from everyone's personality and like traits, and it was like Daenerys wouldn't do that, like you know, like blah 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 blah.
And this is not a rabbit hole I was anticipating going down, but talking about talking about Game of Thrones, it's like. It went like what the reason that it sucked so badly is that for a decade it built you up to basically Jon Snow and the Night King. Let's see what happens. And those two dudes never even got near each other.
Never.
And it's like all of this payoff, all the Dothraki riding into battle and just boom, gone. And they're just dead. Like we don't even get to see this because of that night fight. And then like everything you had been anticipating just didn't happen at all. And it's like and then Arya flies out of nowhere. Spoiler alert!
What
and
a
then
dagger.
and then
what a dagger, bro!
And then what? Four seasons of Bran saying, "I can't be king," and everyone's like, "Let's make Bran king." Like, what the fuck is going on? Anyways,
that whole thing, like it literally. If you think about it, it was about 10 years of life wasted.
Right.
Like a good 10 years. Like dude, seriously, like my household, the kids would go to bed. My wife would she didn't like the show, so she would just go do her thing. Like I was down in my basement, like the surround sound is going crazy every time the music came on. I had the lights and I had the LEDs everywhere that would light up the same colors what's on the screen all around the room, and then like the last season was just trash, bro. Like it was just like, oh my god. But let's get back to I'm gonna share a demo real quick.
Okay, we're gonna take on TikTok. Thank you so much for the likes, everybody. You won't be able to see this, but yeah, I want for the actual podcast. Let's see some of the visuals that this can create. It is nuts. So if you actually go to Google's website, you can watch this video in full definition.
Yeah, Google VO3 demo voices and audio is the name of it if you want to search it up.
Look at that.
The microfilm is in your ticket.
Look at that.
They're watching the north exit. Use the service tunnel.
Is that Harambe?
Probably.
Object to say it loud in Westwood. Drink, knife, ball, hand, drink, shoes, ball.
Dude.
Just the fact
Some
that
of the
there's
squares of the two shorter sides
Pythagoras theorem.
Dude,
Get out of here.
All right. So
it's a force, a wild, untamed.
looks like Pierce Brosnan. All right. So
Dude, that's crazy. That is crazy.
yeah. So okay. So that's a good example of what VO3 can do, and it's so unlimited. Imagine that a college starts teaching courses where Albert Einstein is your professor based on everything like an online course where you learn from him and he's teaching you his methods, or Da Vinci is walking you through his illustrations and designs. Like what this can do is just, it gives me shivers, man. There's a lot of people that are afraid of AI. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're afraid of AI, good luck, because it's too late. It's here. It ain't going anywhere. We've literally created a god. It's
Yeah.
a deity in its infancy.
You made a statement earlier saying, talking about how fast this can progress in like the 10-year, bell
Yeah.
curve or what have you.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because at where I work at, the developers use AI to speed up their development, right? And so they build the large language models that allow them to shortcut basically like the coding and stuff like that. And so they're doing more of the bug fixes and stuff like that and checking it for syntax and stuff like that. And so not only are we creating AI, but we're also using AI to speed up our ability to create AI, right? And so it's not just, and that's why the exponential curve is even faster than what people are realizing. I can't say anything too much about what we're doing, but I mean, we have a tool where you can basically speed up development, iterations, all of those different things without basically doing it yourself. You know what I mean? And so it's like we're able to launch products and things like that at a crazy scale, at a very, very fast, and at a, I'm talking about large top 3 employers in the country where we're working at to deploy this tool. And so knowing what I know from that and then seeing how fast this is generating, imagine being like one of the godfathers of AI and then using that same ability to speed up further creation of AI, right?
Dude.
That's kind of what we're seeing.
And it still has human guardrails on it. It still has us preventing it from doing even more. So either it becomes sentient or we take the guardrails off, and then God knows what it's going to be able to do. And here's the thing. AI a lot of times has the bias put into it by the creator, right? So whoever created that
Or the
AI, it's
source
going to lean.
material, or the
And a
source
great
material.
example of that is Google's Gemini that came out a couple years ago. They had to roll it back because someone that was trying to overcorrect for history, I think is probably the best way to say it. Every time you searched any historical figure in the history of like human civilization, it showed a black version of that person. So if you searched Elon Musk, it was like anybody, didn't matter what they were, it showed a black version of them. And so it overcorrected based on the bias implemented by who created it. Will AI in and of itself, when it starts creating itself, will it still have that bias? I don't know. It's interesting.
I believe it.
What's its morality system?
I believe it will, because it's based on what's available, right, and what's represented, right, and that's one of the things that I don't know if you remember, but about 5 years ago, the lead directors of AI and data science was fired from Google because she wrote a paper on the ethics or lack of ethic morality within AI, specifically at Google. And they asked her to take her name off the paper. I have to look her up. I'll have to search her after the show. But they asked her to take her name off the paper because she was an employee at Google, and she had wrote this as a third party, as a part of the university where she was teaching at in North Carolina. And see if you can find it. But they fired her and maybe 3 or 4 people of her team because they brought up the ethics of AI and how Google wasn't basically being ethical in the way that they were creating. Now, we don't know because they never actually said
Margaret Mitchell.
They never said exactly what she was saying that they were being non-ethical about. They didn't point out, like, was it culturally, was it, bias, sexual bias or race or anything like that. But they just said she just said it was unethical or whatever. So they fired her. Go ahead. You got some article up?
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
No, you're good.
So, quick. Okay, I was asking ChatGPT to give me a quick summary of it, and it's like full-on novel, so I won't do that. But basically, it was in late 2020. Tensions arose when Gebru, I guess. Okay, so she's a prominent computer scientist specializing in AI ethics, focused on algorithmic bias and fairness in machine learning. And so she co-founded and co-led Google's ethical AI team alongside Timnit Gebru. And so anyways, I won't read through all this. You already kind of covered what she was talking about. But here's the thing, man. It's based on the human morality code. So whatever we think is good or bad, if it does anything other than that, we think it's evil. And I was talking to someone yesterday who was saying that if it doesn't believe in the sanctity of human life and protecting human civilization, it is inherently evil. And I disagree with that because, like, in nature, if you look at how nature balances itself, what's evil about, like a lion killing a baby giraffe or something like that? Or do I have to say unaliving on TikTok? I don't know. Anyways, but like, is the lion evil because it's making less giraffes be on the planet? but it's also providing for its family. So, like, how do you put that into AI? How does it determine what's good or bad? Because if it tries to find equality, or not equality, but like a level playing field, but one type of person gets outcast, you know what I mean? Like, like who draws the line, us or it?
I mean, and that's a very sensitive topic, right? Because the human by nature is the biggest monster on the planet, if you think about it.
Well, we are a cancer to this planet.
Right. So with that being said, if the AI is focused basically on natural selection, we're not the ones it's going to protect. Right? Because we're the cause of a lot of the bad things that are happening on the planet, whether
100%.
it's deforestation, whether, whatever it is, overpopulation, consuming too many natural resources, and all of those different things. So with that being said, we are not the ones that the AI is going to protect, and that's where people say AI is evil, right? Because we typically wouldn't be the one that it's going to be
by our standards.
By our standards, right? Because we would be one of the targets.
100%. And so, that's where it's evil to humans, but to the balance of the universe, I don't think it is. And here's the thing. Okay, last episode, we talked about a little bit of the conspiracy theory stuff, and I've got thoughts that AI already exists, and it existed before, like, the Younger Dryas theory 12,000 years ago, where humans went down to 1,000. I think it existed before that, and I think it is like all these anomalies, and like the drone stuff in New Jersey that we heard about last year. That's happening more than ever on the East Coast right now, but it's not in the news. I don't know why it's not being covered, and this probably is irrelevant, but like, if you think about all these anomalies that are rearing its head right now, all these different things, there's sightings, there's things flying around, stuff like that. I know this is going down a rabbit hole, and it's kind of crazy.
It started early.
But I told you I was ready to start talking today, bro. Anyways, if you think about that, like, how do we know that, like, you started seeing UFO anomalies after, like, the atomic bombs were dropped in Japan. And it's like, oh, wow, these barbaric ape-like creatures now have the ability to mass destroy civilizations. And they have more power than they have control. And so then you start seeing UFOs pop up, right? And they got the Roswell incidents and all this stuff. How do we know there's not a dormant form of AI that learned how to live at the bottom of the ocean that's like, we got to keep an eye on these dudes because they're starting to get a little too powerful, and I'm also inhabiting this planet. And now they've created a baby version of me. I got to start making appearances and like either connecting with this thing or like figuring out what they're doing and staying a little bit more on top of it. And that's why we're seeing more sightings than ever and stuff like that. And I know this is crazy talk, but like, have you seen the video where they have two AIs start talking to each other, and they start talking in a different language?
That was Google as well, right?
I think
and they had to shut it down. They had to shut it down.
They had to stop it because it started talking in almost like an audio binary type of code that
it created its own language to communicate.
100%.
Yeah,
and so
between the two.
If this ancient AI taps into our current AI and starts talking, and we're the problem, do we go through another round of almost human extinction? Because it's like, we're the problem here. Did that happen 12,000 years ago? Isn't that crazy?
No, so in that same regard, like, that's one of the questions that I have when we talk about some of the ancient civilizations that no longer exist, where the structures are still there and we can't scientifically understand how they created them.
Yeah.
And and that's kind of why I've said, like, that drives me crazy sometimes, just thinking about it, that we are alive with these structures present and we don't know how they were created. We can't do it ourselves, right? We can't make anything that lasts like that, and we don't know what their purposes are. And we talk about the pyramids being on all continents and all oceans and things like that. And I've thrown that Pangea around a couple times and things like that, but it just drives me insane. And like, the potential AI or whatever, it's like the moon theory. The moon is a spaceship or a hollow or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of conspiracies around that. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, honestly, how do we know that it's not actively putting preventative measures in place so that we can't adapt fast enough to become too powerful again? And that's why we can't find evidence of how they built the pyramids and how they moved those blocks, because this AI thing that has been here for thousands of years is like, nah, I got to take this technology away. Well, they're going to advance too fast, and here we are advancing because we are a bacteria on this planet, and AI is trying to keep it clean. You know what I mean? Because like, there's evidence of humans being destructive, and even graffiti on ancient graffiti from 4,000 years ago, where we've always been a terrible organization to this planet. Organism. Anyways, it's a wild thought. And this
Well, I mean, it's kind of like a segue into our next topic, right? Which is the Mandela Effect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the Mandela Effect, if you're unfamiliar with the Mandela Effect, it is a term that means mass people believe one thing that may or may not be true. And it's titled the Mandela Effect because Nelson Mandela, which eventually was the president of South Africa, I believe, was believed for a long time by a lot of people, and I mean thousands and thousands and thousands of people, had died in prison in the 80s.
Yep.
But he eventually became the president he was released in the 90s and eventually became the president of South Africa.
Yeah.
And you can Google this thing. There are a ton of different topics that are the Mandela Effect, right? And you can give some examples, Corey, because I know you.
I do have some examples because I was like, I wanted to see what the most popular ones are that a lot of people will think about. Let us know in the comments what your favorite Mandela Effect is and what your thoughts are on it. So how do we know that's not AI purposefully doing that to make us second guess all of our knowledge? You know, is it alternate timelines and universes, or is it this? Dude, people are gonna think I'm crazy. So, anyways, so
He's got this fast talk.
my favorite Mandela Effect is actually the movie Shazam that had Sinbad in it. Mm-hmm. That movie existed. It existed.
Saw that movie. I remember.
I did too.
Bro.
Well, and a lot of people are like, "Nah, it was Kazam with Shaquille O'Neal," which
Shaquille
also
O'Neal.
that
I remember that
too.
movie. Yeah, I knew that movie too.
But Shazam with Sinbad was a movie, and it existed. And even like Sinbad himself has said that, "No, I was never in a movie called Shazam." Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
I'm sorry, but millions of people are like, "No, I'm pretty sure I saw that movie when I was a kid."
I remember the cover. I remember his smile where he was kind of like looking up like this, and he had the little genie hat on and all this different stuff. Like, I vividly remember that from my childhood. The Shazam movie.
So let's talk. I got a couple other pulled up here. The Bernstein Bears.
How it's spelled, right?
Yeah, it's actually spelled the Berenstain Bears, but people think it's the Bernstein Bears, Stein, and it's not. It's Stain. Now, why AI would want to mess with us about how to spell that, I don't know. But you know, like the Luke, I am your father from.
Yes, yeah.
Ones like that I think are easy to explain because people are like, oh, let's quote this amazing movie that like everyone loved, and it's
Dude,
like,
we're
oh,
talking
Luke,
about
I'm your
millions
father.
of people, though, bro.
I think the telephone effect is definitely excuses a
hearing
lot
it,
of
though,
these.
man. I mean, Earl, his voice, man, like it's not easily repeatable.
Here's the thing. When Star Wars came out, it was in the 70s, and you had no way to fact check what was actually said. So the telephone effect happens. People start saying, like, Luke, I am your father, rolls off the tongue and sounds better than Vader actually saying, no, I am your father. No, it doesn't give context, but when you say Luke, who was a famous figure in the 70s because of Star Wars, Luke, I am your father, it immediately tells you what movie you're talking about versus no, I am your father. So I think the telephone effect excuses a lot of Mandela effects. But there's some that it doesn't. Like the Monopoly Man having a monocle.
Monocle.
He has one, and apparently he doesn't.
Uh-oh, what my camera doing?
So, is it looking all over the place?
Yeah.
At least, dude, I'm so glad I don't have this OBSBot webcam that kept
Oh, you know
Remember
what
that
happened?
thing would pop down to my crotch, like in the middle of the podcast, and I'm like, why is it doing that?
You know what happened?
What's that?
You triggered my my AI thing when you put your finger up to your monocle.
Oh, did it really? It started looking at me?
Yeah, it started following you.
Another, oh my God, this one, hold on. Pikachu had a black-tipped tail. Does
Brown.
Pikachu have black at the end of his tail?
It's brown,
It's fully yellow,
fully yellow.
except for a brown patch right at the base by his butt. I'm sorry.
That's what
Pikachu has a black end to his tail, right?
See, does he?
That's what the Mandela effect is. It's saying
But
that he
it's-
never did.
I mean, that's like Curious George having or not having a tail, which is the other one, Curious George.
Does he have a tail?
No.
Dude, these bother me so much.
Another cool one is if there's any, I guess men watch this show too, but SEX in the City, this TV show that was really big with Sarah Jessica Parker. It's not in the city; it's and the city.
Really?
It's and the city.
See, I think my problem with that one is I'm not as big of a fan of that show like you are. I know you.
But that show.
You binge watch all those seasons like 10 times, right?
I've probably seen like 20 episodes, but I got 5 sisters and a wife, right? So I
was joking. I didn't know you'd seen it that much.
Yeah, back in the day. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, house full of women.
You know what? This answers a lot of questions.
Oh, does it? but so that one's pretty big as well. And dang, I lost my train of thought on some other ones.
Apparently, We Are the Champions. How does that song? We are the champions,
my friend,
of the
world.
Nope, not in the song. That's what it says. That's what I'm searching. These popular Mandela effects. It says it just fades out. It doesn't end.
No, bro. No,
dude, that's blowing my mind.
I remember the echo of the world.
Apparently not. Apparently not. I'm gonna have to go listen to it now because I don't know. Let me in the comments like what this is. I want to hear what people in the comments are thinking. What are your Mandela effects? Thank you so much for all the likes.
I gotta call BS on that one, bro. Of the world is part of that song, bro.
I think so too, but now I'm not sure.
Because there's like a key change after he sings it because it echoes, and then there's a key change, and then the next verse comes in.
I think so too, but I need to listen to it now. And maybe there's a new version, but like, it's freaking me out a little bit.
Come on, bro.
I got one you're really gonna like here in a little bit. Do you want to search that song and see what it actually is, or do you want to go to the next one?
I'm gonna do it simultaneously because.
Okay. Well, this next one's gonna make you stop in your tracks because I want to see because you're a fan of this series and I am too, but you're a bigger fan than I am, and I'm gonna see if you know the answer.
Okay.
I'll just go ahead and say it while you're searching. Anne Rice's most popular novel. What's the title?
Interview with the Vampire.
Interview with a vampire?
The Vampire.
The Vampire. Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
I thought it was Interview with a Vampire.
It's the Vampire, right?
But that's what it actually is. But a lot of people think it's Interview with a Vampire. I thought it was Interview with...
Is the movie A or the...
Let's take a look. The movie...
It's the Vampire TV...
Interview with the Vampire. The movie is Interview with the Vampire. I thought it was Interview with a Vampire. Dude, this is weirding me out, man. Like, AI, man, it's messing with us. There's this AI being that's changing all this just to make us second guess our own knowledge.
Did you, God, what is the name of that show? It's a TV show.
Wait, did Jiffy Peanut Butter...
Fringe. You ever saw Fringe back in the day? You never saw Fringe? So
no.
Fringe... Oh my God. Fringe is, I think it was only open for 4 seasons, and the last like 3 and 4, like season 3 and 4 was kind of crazy out there.
Yeah.
But let us know in the comments if you ever saw the TV show Fringe. That show is it's like alternate universes, and it's the reason it's called Fringe is because it's like all of this conspiracy type crazy, almost like X-Files back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't want to give anything away because I thoroughly enjoyed that show, and I think you would enjoy it too. So I'm not going to say anything about the show whatsoever, but the show is really damn good.
Okay.
And so go check it out.
I think I've heard of it. I'll check that out. You got to check Firefly out, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jiffy Peanut Butter never existed.
No, because Jiffy is cornbread. Me and my wife talked about that the other day.
Did you? It's just Jif.
It's Jif, yeah. It's Jif.
Jiffy Peanut Butter existed. Come on.
See, no, because I know Jiffy is cornbread. Like it doesn't even. But yeah,
it's weird. It's weird. Well, and that's where I can see that one getting confused. But like some of these, like this is what's strange to me about the Mandela Effect is how not just how many people believe in one thing being true that's not true, how many instances there are of us all believing one thing a certain way.
Agreed.
And a lot of these, almost all of them are pre-internet, before people could correct themselves. So I wonder, are Mandela effects going down, and we're seeing less of them because we can fact check ourselves? Because like a lot of these, I don't see any recent ones.
See, but the interesting thing, and this is something that I always tell my kids as well, the internet isn't necessarily true just because it's there, right?
Yeah.
And so like that, so
it's a good thing to teach kids.
To that same point, like this is pre-internet, but it's also before you could mass fool folks with an article or with a video, or you
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
nowadays you can post something, and if you talk with conviction, if you talk with an air of being a subject matter expert, a lot of people will believe you just because of those three elements, right?
Yeah.
These Mandela effects were prior to all of that.
Right.
It was prior to, you know, people being able to read an article. We were still reading newspapers and stuff like that. And so for millions of people to think that Nelson Mandela died in prison in a time where information was not easily shareable, right, is intriguing at the least. At the least, it is very, very intriguing.
That's why people believe we landed on the moon.
Right. Well, I mean, they falsified that with the video of the flag flowing in the air when there's spaces.
Oh,
vacuum,
you don't
but
think we actually went to the moon?
No, man. I mean,
We've been on the moon. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I don't
that
know if
wasn't-
that.
time we wasn't. I mean, the space is a
Right.
vacuum, right? So is the flag really going to flow in the air? There's no wind, right?
Well, movement still can affect it. So like, if
But
it
bro,
still has.
a rippled U.S.
Well,
flag.
here's the
like,
thing: if they touch that pole, there's no friction in the air to stop it from moving, so it could move almost indefinitely.
No, I
if
get that, but
you
would
bumped it and then you went back and started the camera. See, I don't know.
Man, I mean, that thing was like the flag at the beginning of a Superman movie, bro. Like the
That's a little aggressive.
the perfect light on it. Like it had like these wavy fluffs in it, and just come on, bro. That was
I
a
know.
set in Hollywood.
I know.
Like I don't deny that we've been there. I think we've been there.
I just don't think we did it when we
I don't
said we
think
did.
That was that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that was like we got to tell a story back home type deal.
This
yeah.
this is gonna be interesting because there's some people that for some reason, because I don't really know what to think anymore, so I don't like to have a firm viewpoint if I can't prove it. Right?
I can't prove it.
Yeah, and so but there's some people that will defend the absolute heck out of this, and they're like, "No, we went there when we said we went there," and I'm like, I just have such a, I think the reason this has been such an argument that honestly has caught even more steam in the last decade than it ever has is because of the general distrust with the news. People don't trust media anymore, and so why would we trust that actually happened? You know, because the whole focus was trying to beat Russia to the moon. So of course, like we're going to be aggressive and cut some corners. But at the same time, there's so many people that were involved with that, and there's never been any solidified evidence saying that it was faked. So, like, how do you have this many people? And it's not just the U.S. that was involved on that. You have countries worth of people that were involved in making that happen because of the parts that took to manufacture to make on the spaceship to go to the moon. How do you involve that many different people and not one person has come out that was involved with the project and said, yeah, it didn't happen? That's the weird part of it because it's like there's too many.
I feel like there was Buzz Aldrin. I think there was like some.
Buzz Aldrin punched a dude who said he didn't go to the moon.
Yeah.
And then he came back 10 years later and said that it wasn't real. And I'm like,
yeah.
what's
I mean,
what's
think
the
about
truth?
it, bro. It's 2025 and we could barely get on a damn TikTok. Now, you really think that they?
Hold on. We're not astronauts, though.
I get it, but they're not cinematographers and videographers either, right? They're extremely intelligent, but it's a different field, right? So it's like, and of course, they had some experts there for those types of things, transmissions and stuff like that, for sure. But at the same time, bro, I do get it that government technology is a lot further advanced than et cetera, but streaming, that's streaming, right? There's no cables between here and the moon, so they streamed a video feed from the moon way back then with all of these, again, like all of these attributes and characteristics of a perfect set. It just doesn't align for me just logically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think we've been there. And I think there's conspiracies on the south side of the moon and stuff like that. Like, you know, we never showed that, but Elon Musk is aiming for the south side. Like all of these different things, but I just don't think that happened at that time frame.
Yeah, it's so weird how
again, I could be swayed if somebody could prove it, but I just don't.
See, I could be swayed to believing less, but I don't think there's anything that can make me 100% believe. You know what I mean?
Never. I mean, at the end of the day, it's always like, that sounds about right, but I just.
It's crazy that just the conversation of Google's VO3, it started all of this. And that's what's interesting to me is the amount of uncertainty that it's created and generating actively every day. And so, like, I've thought about how is this going to affect us as product reviewers, because both of our channels are predominantly reviewing products.
Yeah.
We're going to start seeing like what this can do. We're going to start seeing fake reviews pop up, and it's going to, and like, how do we start proving, because people are going to start becoming more hungry for making sure that it's a real person that's giving their opinion and not AI.
Yeah.
How do we prove that we, like right now, are not AI, right? Like, it's going to get to the point where it's going to be like, how do you describe the color blue to a blind person? Like, you can't do it, really, you know? So it's like, I think if you look at where VO3 is now and where it came from the last 2 years, 2 years from now, it's going to be impossible to tell if it's a real person or not. And it can have a conversation just like us, because it uses these conversations as reference. Everything we're saying right now is going into servers and a database held by either wherever this video is going to be, or TikTok right now. And it's going to use this conversation to make it sound like us. So how do we show that we're real? I don't think it's going to be possible anymore.
I just, audience, if you're watching, every time you see me look that direction, my screen is over there. So that's just me typing to figure out some information. But OpenAI, and I heard this from Brandon and Jarrell on Uncensored podcast on Friday. OpenAI has created a system almost 2 years ago to confirm what they're watching is either human or AI. So they did this 2 years ago, right? And so here's the interesting thing. The stuff that we see in the public is generally tested for a long time before it becomes available to the public. And that's why I talk about government technology versus private technology and the streaming and stuff like that. But they created that system 2 years ago, and that was 2 years ago before they created Sora, right? And Sora came out last year, right around, and it's very similar to Google Veo, except it doesn't have sound.
Right.
And so they created that along the same timeline that they were creating Sora, so that when you watch something, you can tell whether or not it's AI or if it's human.
Yeah.
And to Corey's point earlier, like the fingers are no longer like 10 digits on a hand. They're starting to be really accurate, and the gait of the walk is starting to be better. But the eyes also can tell a story because they don't really focus. It's almost like right now, my camera is actually right there, but I'm looking at the monitor, so you can't, I'm not actually making eye contact.
They already have AI that can correct that.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying? But there's still like, there's a dead, for lack of better terms, inhuman aspect to the eyes of an AI generated person.
Uncanny Valley.
Where it's like you just know that that's not a real living being, if you will. And again, those are things that people won't pay attention to when they're scrolling through a timeline, because they don't know those folks. So they're just not comfortable looking at the camera, right? Something like that, right? Your mind will make those suggestions for you. So it is very interesting, like how the landscape is going to change really rapidly over time. But the reason I said all that is to get back to my point. When it comes to reviews, and we've talked about this in the past, as how consumers, viewers, etc., don't believe us as humans when we review a product, because there's a bias, that's attached to anybody that reviews a product on their channel. So imagine when AI videos start being out there, what the bias will look like, and then those same folks will be running, in my opinion, this is an opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or you can debate me, I think at that point people will run back to the human reviewers, right? Because they want to actually hear it from someone that actually touched it versus someone that is actually regurgitating the information that they believe we are doing.
You are touching on something I was actually thinking about just the other day, about if you haven't started a YouTube like product review channel yet, and you didn't exist before AI, I think it's going to be really hard to grow. Because I think we're probably 12 months away from YouTube having a disclaimer you have to put, just like with paid sponsorships, saying this is not AI generated.
Well, they do have it in there.
Well, I think it's going to become more prominent, and it's going to have a little something that I think that's got to happen, right?
Yeah, and Instagram already does it. Instagram already does the alter tag.
Oh, right. For sure. And so I think that YouTube's going to have to implement that. And then if you didn't exist before AI, like we both existed, I started my channel I started my first channel in 2020, and my next one in 2023. And you obviously, your channel is much older. And so like we've been around. Well, yeah, but your actual channel itself, it dates back before, but I guess the content on it doesn't.
Right.
But your channel's like 9 years old, but like you started like hardcore YouTube.
Well,
like
that's the interesting thing. It's just my Google email that I've had for I think 12 years.
But you had a YouTube channel attached to it.
Not until 2020. My first video was in 2020.
Really?
Yeah,
We got a Mandela effect happening right now, folks. It's happening.
So my first video was actually a fitness video talking about getting ready for the summer of 2020. It's when I was in the gym every single day and all this different stuff. And so my first like 6 or maybe 10 videos on YouTube was fitness videos. But then the gyms started to shut down.
You had those twerk videos.
Yeah, twerk. This dude here.
You just started nodding.
My hips don't lie.
You're doing those twerk out videos. Come twerk out with me.
What's the strong dude from Everybody Hates Chris, the dad? What's the real strong dude? From, White Girls and all of that other stuff.
I know. I don't remember his name.
The host of America Got Talent, where he be doing all those dance moves.
And
stuff
Terry
like
Crews.
Terry Crews, yeah.
I first saw him in White Chicks. God, that dude is so funny, man. That's a good movie.
That was my YouTube channel back in the day. But
you think they could reverse that movie?
Black chicks
and have two white guys?
Nah, bro.
Dude, that would be wild.
You almost got our YouTube channel demonetized.
You said it, not me.
No, you said that shit.
Yeah, when was the last time you saw a good comedy that pushed the boundaries? And I don't mean watched it. I mean, when did one come out that was like it pushed the boundaries?
They won't anymore.
I know, right? They're too scared.
And this will be a rabbit hole if we go down it. But comedy used to be an outlet for, first of all, just funny stuff, right? It used to be an outlet for world situations and scenarios to be covered via comedy because people wouldn't say it openly, right? They wouldn't say it in a serious forum, right? And so they would joke about it to cover it. James, Dave Chappelle is somebody that still does it to this day.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy, etc. But nowadays, I think we as a culture look to be I'm trying to do it sensitively. We as a culture of people, not a race, but a culture holistically, Homo sapiens, humans, let me cover all my bases. You
just gonna leave out Neanderthals like that, man? Come on.
I mean, if there's a few left, them too. But we often no longer hear the message anymore. We only listen to how it's said.
Yeah.
And the person that's saying it to respond versus hearing it. It used to be we would hear it and be like, oh, yeah, that situation is ongoing and that situation is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm glad they brought light to that, right? They joked about it, but they brought light to it. And nowadays, I don't think we have the capability to do that as a mass group. I think individuals still do, where I'm one of those people where it's like, dang, what did they say? Oh, okay, but
objective thinking has gone out the window.
Oh yeah, my God.
We
desensitized. We're desensitized.
For sure. Yeah. Well, if you look, there's a quote by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson and his Politics and What You Think of Him aside. He says, to be funny, you have to, to be humorous, you have to risk being offensive, right? And that's the thing about something funny. Someone's going to be at the butt end of that joke, and that's we don't see that anymore. So here's what would happen if that movie came out. Rotten Tomatoes, it would have a critic score of 0% because everyone's afraid to laugh at a movie that does that.
The comment section will be live, though.
It would. And I guarantee the audience score would be like 90+% because people would think it was hilarious if it's done tastefully and correctly, right? And if you redid that movie, that would be, I tell you what, that would blow up. And good or bad, that movie would catch a lot of traction.
It would be one of the most talked about movies probably in the last 30, 50 years.
Let's start it, man. Let's start a studio together, you and me.
I'm not doing that. I'm not. I wouldn't touch. Listen, I wouldn't touch it.
Nah, I wouldn't either. Yeah. It'd be so difficult. Well, the thing is, I say it's so difficult to get that right, but that's kind of the thing about a comedy. Getting it right means it's not going to be funny. Like you got to push.
You'd have to be blackface.
Yeah, I know.
Right. There's no way around it, right? And that's why I'm saying, and even going back to White Chicks,
what if it wasn't white guys doing it? What if it was a non-white race doing blackface? Does it still hit as hard?
I think so. I think so, because going into the race topics within my culture, right, black culture or whatever,
right,
those topics aren't always discussed, and they're not always accepted by everyone, right? And so it's like we can talk about,
Like you can't even give it a platform.
you can't give it a platform, right? Like we can talk about different atrocities that are happening across the world, and the world will circle around that. But for whatever reason, that's just one that, not that one, I don't want to say it's one, but that group of topics is just not one that universally people will accept and talk about, right?
And like it's a bummer because if you erase history, you're doomed to repeat it. I know it's an aggressive, and we've talked about this before. Like it just because you remember something. I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, obviously, because of our platforms. But, you know, like when you start erasing what happened, it takes away the significance of it. And it takes away, like, if you can't see the starting point anymore, you don't know how long you've been running and how long the race is. And you've got to remember where you came from. And it's painful and it sucks. But it shows how far as a country and a civilization I think we have come. And this was not on my list of topics to discuss today. And honestly, what's crazy is just having... yeah, I know, right? Just having this conversation right now could potentially land us in hot water, me in hot water, you know? And it's like, it sucks that we can't just have open dialogue. I mean, you and I can because we're good friends.
Which we do all the time, right?
Right. Yeah. And so, but to have it openly, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, so and that's why I think that movie...
Oh, my TikTok just shut up. I'm just kidding. Can you imagine? But go ahead. What are you going to say?
TikTok will be the one that stays open, though. That's why they wanted to ban it. Freedom of speech on TikTok, for real.
Well, unbiased news too.
Yeah,
the government doesn't want the real news getting out there.
Agreed. Yeah, that's that. Look, so I did a video about that. Not shameless plug, but it is a plug. But I did a video about the reasons TikTok would be banned by the U.S. and different stuff like that. It was for control of information.
100%.
It was, I think, was the biggest thing, the control of information. And I'm not gonna plug it. It's on my channel somewhere. It's like far back. It was like a year and a half ago, almost at this point. Like when it was just a rumor that the U.S. was trying to ban TikTok. But that particular reason right there is that you can really talk about anything on TikTok without the fear of your channel being banned, demonetized, erased, and all those particular things. Whereas Facebook, Instagram, even YouTube, to a point, you know, there's certain things you just cannot say, right? So
yeah, it's a bummer, man, because like, with exception, you and I can have a real transparent conversation, and we respect each other enough to know that, like, you know where I stand, I know where you stand. We can, and I think people are so afraid to disagree now. Like, you have to agree to be friends. Like, no, absolutely not. The best friends are the ones where, like, you can give each other a hard time. At the end of the day, you know you're still going to text each other the next day and see how you're doing. And I just wish more people, and honestly, I think there's a lot of people out there that are still like that. If you didn't watch the news for a day, you wouldn't know that any of this stuff exists. If you just go out and go to a store and talk to somebody and joke with somebody, it's going to be so rare that you find someone who gets really, really upset because you don't agree with them. It's just all of this circles full back to why people stop believing in the moon landing and stop believing in certain things that are broadcast by the news, because people just don't trust news anymore, man. They really don't.
I mean, that's the last thing I'll say. It's very interesting that when you watch the news that every single, I won't say every single, because that's, you don't want to say all and all of the different things, but a lot of the news media have the same exact opinion on things. Like, how does that happen?
Dude, have you seen the compilations where it'll be like 100 different news anchors saying verbatim the exact same thing whenever they're reporting on something?
Yeah,
like,
that's what I'm saying. How does that happen?
And that was before AI. Like, that's real.
How does that happen, right? And so it's and that's why it's hard to trust the news, because no one has the freedom to say what they really believe. It's all, again, I don't want to use the word all, but a lot of it is very similar in thinking. And it's like, everybody knows that in order for things to progress or move forward or be natural is for things to be different, for people to have different thought processes, to have diversity of thought, right? And so, but yeah, so I guess moving on from that, we wanted to talk about, that was because that's a rabbit hole, people, that we will stay in.
And I want to know in the comments below if you want to hear more on these topics, because normally we talk about, I know, we talk about, like, people don't understand that this podcast is really an iceberg to the stuff that Cozy and I talk about. Because, like, this is just like a sample of, like, when we're just on a call with each other. We used to get on calls for 4 hours a day. And
and they would be, listen, they would just...
all over the place. But yeah, I got some more stuff to talk about. What specifically do you want to move to next?
Lighten it up a little bit. Jump into Ubisoft.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I watched this video by GameRanks that came out this last week talking about how Ubisoft. I call it Ubisoft. Is it Ubisoft?
It's Ubisoft, I think.
Okay. But it was talking about how they're acting weird, and Ubisoft has been a brand that I've been kind of disenfranchised with for a long time, or a company that is. So just kind of let me talk through some of the talking points really quick. Obviously, I think they really got into the news with a lot of the backlash with the Assassin's Creed stuff. Like, for instance, one of the things is like the cultural sensitivity, which is kind of a segue from what we just talked about, over Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is set in feudal Japan. The big backlash was the fact that it had a samurai who was a black guy, and then you could play as a Japanese woman who as the two characters. You can play one of either. And so what's interesting, it's not because of that the sensitivity thing has popped up with Ubisoft. You know what it is? I don't know if you've heard this. It had environmental destruction, so you could go into anywhere and things would fall off a table and shatter, ancient Japanese relics, things like that. People in Japan got pissed about that because they're like, hey, this is our culture, that things are getting destroyed.
Yeah.
And so Ubisoft sent out a patch where you can't destroy the things in the environment anymore. And then everyone else is like, wait, why is this the only game that has that cultural sensitivity? And every other game you can do it, like in Vikings, like the Valhalla one, like they didn't send out a patch for that. And every other, so why are they prioritizing one culture? And so people are like, why are you doing this? Just let the game be the game. Like, it's already not set. It's already very loosely based on historical facts. And so it's like, you're not honoring the culture anyways, because it's not completely true. And so why are you walking this back? So that kind of, and then the way they talk about it, and like their marketing missteps they've had, that's why they've been under fire recently. And so, like, for instance, they had promotional materials that were resembling significant Japanese historical sites, like different like landmarks and things like that. And they were seen as insensitive, so Ubisoft pulled it back. And they're only doing it because of this game and because of the backlash, instead of just holding strong. So this is one thing about Ubisoft, and it sounds like you got a thought before I continue. What do you...
I go back and forth on things like that. So I did not know about the environmental destruction because I haven't played the game yet.
Right? I haven't either.
It's on my list. I want to play it soon. I get it. I definitely do. Specifically, if it's something that is of religious value or different things like that. Like, you don't want to see those things destroyed. I walk the line because it's a game. Right, and it's but at the same time, people want their appropriate representation, and you want that representation protected. We talk about the samurai, and we talked about that on the podcast, I think on like episode 3 or something,
like a year ago.
Yeah, like a year ago. And he is a historical figure, but it's not one from their particular culture that people believe is associated with their particular culture. And so that was backlash. And so it's just interesting that, because we talked about it a second ago, like within art, we talked about it in comedy. Like, people get offended by art, right? Comedy is an art, and now gaming is an art, right? When you create the games and stuff like that. And so it kind of goes back to that. I don't know. I don't have a formed opinion on it yet. I can see both sides. I can see that this, like we talked about this 2 episodes ago, about how structures have lasted in certain civilizations for eons, right, versus homes that are built here in the United States that break up after 20, 30 years. If you have a site like that has lasted, and their culture is very old, for lack of better terms, respectfully, and they have these different monuments and different things like that, you wouldn't want to see those destroyed if they've lasted like that. And it's like this little video game characters destroying this thing that's been around for 1,000 years. I can see the outrage on that, but at the same time, it is a game, and you're getting that representation. So I don't know. Well, I'm anxious to see what everybody that's watching, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what people think as well. I haven't played the game either. I don't know if I will, just because the gameplay is so stale at this point. Man,
what?
For me, I don't know, man. Like, apparently it's very similar to Valhalla, to Odyssey, and to Origins. And I loved Origins and I loved Odyssey, and it just kind of, like I really wanted to enjoy the Vikings one, but that was the longest one they've ever made with the largest world, and it's just I don't have the time to grind anymore, and like it just feels the same, and this game looks like it probably feels the same with some minor changes to mechanics, only if you play the girl. Like they're completely different fighting styles. Well, she's ninja-like. She has the repelling system. She can wall run. She can do all this stuff. The dude has none of that. He's like a brute force, like big weapon kind of guy.
He's a tank.
Yeah, exactly. And so but the thing is, for 15 years, you've had the ability to go into like Christian-based church settings and assassinate like religious figures, even if they're not. Yeah, and well, you can destroy stuff in those too, but none of that has been pulled back. And I think that's where it is. Like, I can't remember exactly how it was explained. I should have rewatched that video before this, but the problem is that they're picking and choosing who they're catering to, and like that's what people are getting irritated about.
Okay, so I'll two thoughts to that. I lost my train of thought on one, so I'll cover this one. It's because the video game world and the gamers are so freaking toxic right now.
They've always been toxic, man. I
think they've always been toxic, but not to the point they are now, where they verbally and written, I was about to say writtenly, where they attack folks on Twitter and all these like the developers, they follow them and just badger them. That's the difference. I thoroughly and I honestly believe that is a difference. Like, you used to get a game back in the day and you would just play it, right? But now every game that comes out, there's a forum, there is a group of folks, there's just there's people that just think about Skyrim, think about the reason Grand Theft Auto 6 hasn't come out yet, and like people, Cyberpunk, like the gamers of today are different than when we gamed when we were younger.
They're softer.
They're not softer. They're just more volatile, man. It's like every game that comes out, there is just a line of a lot of people that just dislikes the game, that are verbally, oh, this game sucks. They should have did this. They should have did that. They should have did that.
Softer.
I don't think that's softer, man. I think it's more. I think it's volatile.
The reason I say softer is because it doesn't fit how I wanted it, so I'm going to whine and complain about it. Just play the game, bro. Just enjoy the game for what it is. That's all I'm saying.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, and so that's because social media has given folks the ability to reach out and touch or talk to these folks. I think that's why 20 years ago they wouldn't have changed, Ezio Collection and things like that, because you couldn't really talk to them. You couldn't really voice your opinion the way that we can today. Yeah. And nowadays, I think that is the biggest difference. And so now they're having to respond because we expect them to respond. If the developers and they don't respond, it's very similar to like what we're saying about Ubisoft right now. They're not talking about the publishing of the cells and different stuff like that. Why are they not talking about it? We didn't have the ability to talk to them directly back in the day.
Well, I think there's always going to be sensitivity around when an American-based company caters to another country and not its home country. Because people in the States weren't asking for these changes. It was people in Japan that were asking for it. And so people in the States were like, why are we catering to another country type of thing? And I think there's always going to be sensitivity around that. And then, with Ubisoft, it's stacking things like there's a lot going into this, not just this one game. It's like they are now pushing other games out by like 2 years. They're talking about price increases for their games. Like they're doing it. They're introducing more live service models, which people are tired of and not a fan of.
The mass layoffs.
Yeah, I mean they've had just not flop after flop. Like they did Redfall too, right?
Are they Redfall?
No, they're not. They're not. That's not. Let me back up a little bit. Anyways, there's just a lot of things that are going on with them. I'd love to hear people's thoughts and what you think about Ubisoft. I've not been a fan of them since they required you to be online and have their launcher to play their games on your PC. I hate that. I've always hated that
launcher. Yeah, I hate launcher.
And
it didn't really bother me until recently because like I've said this several times. I only started PC gaming about 3 years ago, right? So it wasn't a really big thing for me. I guess a little bit longer than that, 2020. 5 years. But going back to the Assassin's Creed, I jumped when you said you didn't want to play it. I think it's because we're opposite. Like, whereas you really love the fighting mechanics and things like that in games, like we talk about some of the Sekiro, die twice and stuff like those type. What's the other one you play? Souls games,
Elden Ring,
and Elden Ring and stuff like that. Like you like those type of things. I like the stories. So I play those games for the stories, not for the. I know the fighting system is going to be the same, but I'm okay with that because it allows me to embrace the story. Yeah. I don't have to learn a new fighting system, and I don't got to be, extremely timed on my parry and different stuff like that in order to get through the story. And that's why I enjoy their story, their game so much. Is because I can just jump in because I'm busy. You know it. I'm super busy. I don't want to have to sit here and figure out how to fight and die 30 times in a row before I can progress to the next thing, because I may only have an hour to play the game this week. You know what I mean? And so I want to get as far as I can in that hour and enjoy it versus having to like learn a new fighting system and have to really understand timing and different stuff like that. And I think that's where me and you differ in like the type of games we play.
What's interesting is that I 180 on it. I did a full 180 on that because I used to really be an RPG story-based gamer, and I think with my attention span and just like the amount of time that I have to game nowadays, I find myself gravitating towards match-based games that give quick dopamine hits. Brotato, I just bought it on PS5, and that game. I play a lot of Madden, you know, not online, but like a lot of like match-based stuff. That's why I was a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dead by Daylight, which you need to play with me. A lot of games like that where it's like I know that I can play. Like I was huge on League of Legends. Those games started warping what I look for in a game, and now it's really hard for me to sit and just pay attention to a game. One, because I only get like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours a day to game, and it's hard to stay. Like I can't just do marathon gaming like I used to and get through chunks of the story. And then you have a game that has an 80-hour storyline with so many damn side quests that to an ADHD brain, I'm like, it's hard to stay on track, right? Like, you know how many times I've completed the Dragonborn storyline in Skyrim? And here's the thing. I put probably 2,500 hours into Skyrim across so many different platforms. I have completed the Dragonborn storyline one time out of how much I've played Skyrim. So that tells you what kind of gamer I am.
That's wild, bro.
Isn't that? Like,
that is wild. I have so many character builds in Skyrim, bro. I've been everything. I've been
Me
a
too.
vampire. I've been a I've been everything.
And I'm saying I have too. I have 20 different characters right now.
Storylines though.
but the main storyline I've completed at one time. Same with Starfield. Once I completed it one time, like I'm like, okay, I want to do everything else.
I'm 9 in on that. I think something crazy like that.
You've completed the storyline 9 times.
There's something like that. Got all the. Brady. Listen. So that's what I'm saying. Like
it has to really suck me in. That's why I liked Black Myth Wukong so much, because Black Myth Wukong, not only is it a fantastic game, it is challenging. I used to hate Dark Souls type games because I wasn't good enough and I didn't have the patience. Being a dad helped me become more patient by force, and so I started to enjoy those games a little bit more. But now I've gotten to the point where instead of breaking a controller, I'll put it down and be like, I'm not going to let this piss me off for the rest of the day, right? Because it will. But here's the thing: Black Myth Wukong, it was like linear, and I missed that in a game, and I didn't realize how much I need that because side quests throw me off so badly. And I think that's why I get frustrated with Ubisoft games, is because they do content by quantity, not quality. So if they'll have 100 different side quests you can do at once that are all kind of similar. Go there, do this, come back, get your reward. Rinse and repeat. And for like Black Myth Wukong, it was like literally you just play through the game all the way to the end, and I did New Game Plus and played it through again. And I can't remember the last time I went through a storyline twice, and I did it back to back. That's how much that game I liked it.
You literally told me that Black Myth Wukong was similar to a Souls game, and I took it out of my.
Man, I really think you need to give it a chance, because it's not as difficult as a Souls game. It's just similar. That's all it is to it. Because like Dark Souls, I won't go back and play those because you can't. Like, here's the difference. Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, games like that, you can go somewhere else, get a little bit stronger, and come back, and it's a lot easier. So like Dark Souls games, I can't do that. Bloodborne, you are stuck on one path. I don't think Bloodborne's as bad about it, but like Dark Souls back in the day, you had those abilities, that equipment, that level going into that boss fight, and if you couldn't beat that boss, you're SOL. And so like with Elden Ring, like a lot of people beat the game around like a level 90 to 100, and it makes it really challenging to do that. I was level 180 when I beat that game, because like it's still challenging to me, even though I'm overpowered, because I don't have the greatest reaction time. I'm not the greatest at like the timing and fighting in the game. So the fact that I could go overpower myself and still enjoy the game, it made me like enjoy it.
Yeah, I get that. So that's. I don't know if I'll ever play that game, but I'm definitely going to play the Assassin's Creed, the new one. I've been looking forward to that game for over man, 4 or 5 years. Like everybody always talked about them eventually doing. Because I don't know if you remember Tenchu.
Oh yeah, Tenchu Z, where you could crawl into the floorboards and stuff.
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like I've been waiting for a good ninja game since then. Like, and that was one of my favorite games. Played it over and over and all the time. And now what's the one you shared with me, the vampire game?
Oh, I know.
Oh my! I wish you would not have shared that with me so early.
You got a while till it comes out, but I want it.
Oh my god! I wish you would have not shared that with me. Like I wish you would have just kept that
It's
to
not
yourself.
close. It's not close.
It's nowhere near close. But the concept of it, man, because we're both fanatics about vampires. Like, it just looks so freaking good, man. And I really do. Like,
what is that called?
Every day, I just wish you would have just not shared that.
Sorry.
It's because like
Blood of Dawnwalker.
We talked about, you know, like I'm one of those people that are pleasure delayers. Like I purposely don't listen to a story or an album or watch a movie or something like that until I'm actually ready to play it. I also don't do the whole like sneak peeks and different things like that, and like I hide away from like getting spoilers and stuff like that. And so you shared that with me entirely too early, and like it makes me nervous because games like that potentially may never come out. And that's the reason I switched from Xbox to PlayStation before the Xbox One, is because they had a game called Scalebound that was supposed to come out on Xbox, and I learned about it way too early. And it was about a dragon, which is another really good favorite topic of mine, is dragon. And it was like feudal type, you know, medieval timelines.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to have this dragon, you could ride it and all this different stuff. By the time the Xbox One came out, they had canceled that game, and I refused to buy the Xbox One. I bought the PlayStation 4 instead. And that's when I switched to PlayStation, or back to PlayStation, because I had a 2, then went Xbox, and then et cetera, et cetera. And so you shared that game with me entirely too early. If it doesn't come out, dude, like it'll be like another one of those moments where I'm just like, I won't know what to do, because it's multi-platform. So I mean, it won't be a platform I can quit. But that was one, like, we'll see.
It's gonna come out. It's CD Projekt Red that's doing it. So
no, but bro, CD Projekt Red. I mean, I love Cyberpunk is one of my favorite games of all time, but they messed up the release. So it went dormant for a year and a half.
But now it's amazing.
Now it's amazing.
So you got plenty of time to play other games before them. So
roughly we're 7 years away from this damn thing.
Can I read to you what it's about? Because so we're talking about the game, The Blood of Dawnwalker, which is a vampire-based game. It looks like potentially, for the type of games that Cozy and I like, this could be the most unifying game that him and I both will absolutely adore. It is you assume the role of Cohen, a young man transformed into a Dawnwalker, which is a being caught between humanity and vampirism. By day, Cohen is human, vulnerable and reliant on wit. By night, he gains vampiric powers, enhancing his strength and abilities. And you have narrative choices. So the game features a 30-day in-game time limit to complete the main story. That's interesting. Time advances with each significant action, compelling players to make strategic decisions about which quests to pursue, whether you want to walk the path of the Daywalker, or of the human, or if you want to dive deeper into being a vampire, which you and I both are going to be walking at night for sure.
For sure.
And it's a narrative sandbox, so it's non-linear quests, which is going to be a problem for me, but I'll fight through it for vampires. But let's take a look right here at this trailer.
And I don't have the sound on because I don't know if...
So we'll talk through what we're seeing here. It's set in medieval times, real nice gothic style, like back in like 1400 AD. Got a burning village right here. I mean, just the graphics alone, obviously trailer is going to be different than gameplay graphics. Old church, he's taken this...
His child.
It's his child. He's taking his child. I think that's going to be Cohen, right? That's the child, the main character. This is where he becomes a Dawnwalker.
I think the one carrying the child is the main character.
Is it?
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about this is that
another white guy.
I mean,
it's medieval England. Like it'd be weird if it was anything different. Okay, so he laid his daughter down like a sack of taters, and
stop.
He just tossed her down there. So, okay. And he like gets caught by these knights, and I mean, just the trailer alone gives you shivers because it has such a good vampire feel to it. That medieval vampire.
traditional vampire that we haven't seen in a long
That
time.
Dracula feel.
Yeah, it's like it goes back to those. Like right now, you know, we were just talking about this the other day. Twilight and Vampire Diaries and stuff like that kind of became the mainstream vampire for a little while.
Yeah.
But this goes back to like that traditional, like, you know, monster in the shadows type, you know, vampire type, you know, narrative, if you will. And I've been waiting for a good movie like this for a long time, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen a movie like this in a long time because, you know, the genre kind of switched. But I'm anxious to see this game, play this game. You shared this with me way too early. Way too early, bro.
Yeah, it's all dependent on how you want to progress through the game. Like, you decide if you become more of a vampire or if you try to push back against it. And these vampires look totally wicked, dude.
And there are different types of them too. Like as you watch through it, like there's different types, which means they'll probably be covering different types of vampires.
Because every culture has their own type of vampire. Dude, you know what never fails to creep me out? The glowing eyes. Whenever you can tell they can see in the night because they have those cat eyes where the lights. Man, dude, that never fails to creep me out, and I love it. Look at that.
Dude, this
Nosferatu looking dude.
I just wish you didn't freaking. And I guess because I'm gonna get going here pretty soon because it's almost time for me to travel to basketball.
Man.
But last question that I'll ask around this, as this this trailer continues to play, for folks on TikTok as well as folks that are watching the podcast, as you watch the trailer, and if you're not able to watch it on TikTok, search it up. As you watch the trailer and you think about, we talked about hinting, and we're going to talk about vampires at some point. If you were to become a vampire, if you had the opportunity to become a vampire, would you want to be a vampire if you had to look like the Nosferatu style vampire? Or, would you only want to be a vampire if you had the ability to be like a Twilight style vampire? The handsome or beautiful type vampires from Van Helsing and stuff like that versus like the Nosferatu style vampire. Because I think that would change people's opinion. If you had to walk around for eternity looking like this guy here, versus looking like Edward McCullen, you know what I mean? Would that shape your decision? So it's super interesting. But look at this freaking game,
Man.
Look at that.
Golly, man. I cannot
Look at
wait.
this right here.
I can't wait to play this.
Oh my god. You shared this entirely, bro. Just too early, bro.
I can't wait to check this game out. That is, I'll be buying. That's a day one purchase for me, which there's not a lot of games like that. I'll pay $80
on
for
Game
that game.
Pass, and I still buy it.
Yeah. I can't wait to pay my subscription plus buying the game.
Yeah. Go watch Corey's video that he produced today on Game Pass. We've talked about that in the past.
I bet it's getting ratio, dude. I bet people are hating it.
I hope they're destroying it. But go watch. But it's. But go check that out. It's a pretty good video where he did talk pretty objectively on his thoughts versus other thoughts and things like that. So go take a look at it.
Don't worry, it's only got 55 views. People ain't watching it. So
go check it out. I think it's a good video, especially if you're a gamer like us.
We'll save that rabbit hole because we've talked about Game Pass in the past, and we have our objective viewpoints on it, and I think it's pretty clear that I'm correct. But anyway, so what's interesting about the vampire?
Everything he says is always wrong. So just reverse psychology. Go ahead.
So anyways, are you asking me that question of what vampire I would choose?
Yeah, what would you choose?
Yeah, I would not want to look like a monster. Because my thing is, for me, I don't want to abandon my family, and I don't want to look like that if I got my kid that I want to watch grow up from a distance. I think that's what's so attractive to me about the Twilight vampires is, jokes aside, because a lot of people make fun of those things relentlessly because of the movies. But if you actually read the books, it's a really good description of what it would be like to be a vampire. And I remember specifically, spoiler alert coming up, in the fourth one, Breaking Dawn, when Bella becomes a vampire. And it describes when she's running through the woods and how she's running at 150 miles an hour or however fast they run. But nothing is blurry. Everything she sees is crystal clear because she's got the eyes of a hunter. And the way it described that Stephanie Meyer did that. That right there, I was like,
they did not do it right in the movie.
No, God, no. The movie.
I almost want to see the movies done again. I'm not gonna lie, they're cult classics, and I like them, and I watch them all the time, just because of the timeline that they came out, and like me and my wife, and stuff like that. Like we watched every single one. We read the books together.
Same.
But I would want to see them again with better actors, because remember they all started for the most part with the Twilight series.
Yeah.
And it got better. Like each movie is like 10 times better than the last one, based on acting, based on budget, based on all those things.
Yeah.
I would really want to see somebody redo them with a big budget from the beginning, with good actors, actresses, and and all of that. And
would you watch it if it was AI done?
No.
See, I might.
I don't. I want to see, because for me, when movies are AI done or CG effects and they get too far out there, I just lose interest.
But what if
because
the AI is so good that it looks real and it doesn't look like CGI?
I just don't think. I don't think we're ready for that. Like I want to see it now. Like I don't want to wait 5 years and and things like that. I want to see it within the next 2 years. The first one with updated effects, updated budget from the very beginning, because that first movie was like, come on, man, like,
it was really bad.
It's like a YouTube movie if you go back and watch it now.
Yeah.
Like oh, she's new from Arizona. It's like, oh my god, that's so bad. Like,
I love my favorite one. There's a lot of favorite scenes in that movie that are just so bad, but the one where when they first get in class together in the books, Bella and Edward, he
the fan.
Yeah, well, she smells intoxicating to him, and so he's like reacting to her scent, because it's like a soulmate type of connection with the way that her scent is to him. Like he's connected to her, but in the movie he's like he's got like this like stink face on.
He grabs the table and stuff. I'm like, man,
it's just
come on,
so
bro.
ridiculous. But
It
anyways,
was really bad.
but yeah, that is, the sparkling is a little weird. Like I wish she could have like it was. I don't know. That's strange. But anyways,
but I think the way they did it in the movie versus like a sheen versus like that, they had them like diamond, like
right. Well, and in the book she describes that their skin is like hard as marble, so it almost has like kind of a shine to it. And
but I think it's like more like a sheen, whereas in the movie they made it look like
someone who's slightly sweating. They're just kind of like
you know what I'm saying?
like a glisten. And so well, even in the book she does say
water's glistening.
they do sparkle, I think, in the books or whatever it is. But anyways, like that description of what it would be like to be a vampire, where you are in your prime as a human being and you're never tired and you don't have to sleep. But that's really like the Twilight vampires didn't have coffins. They don't have to sleep during the day. Like they are up 24 hours a day. And as two guys who are habitually tired because of our content creation, our jobs, our family, having unlimited energy would be fantastic. So anyways, that's what I'll wrap up with,
because there's never enough hours in a day. And, so let us know in the comment section, TikTok and on the podcast, if you had to look like Nosferatu, and you are a fan of vampires like we are, and not everybody's gonna be, but if you had to look like Nosferatu, would you still be willing to do that? Or would you only do it if you could make sure that you come out handsome or beautiful on the other side? I'm very interested to hear what people's thoughts are on that.
I like it. That's a good end of the conversation. Oh, and let us know in the comments if you want to see an alternate version of White Chicks. So I think it's a good way to wrap it up.
Lord, Jesus. You just got us canceled. But yeah, so everybody, let us know your thoughts. We covered, as always, an array of topics. Let us know your thoughts on today's podcast, things you want to talk about in the future. And if there's any comments out there worth, covering, maybe we'll cover them in the next episode or what have you. But as always, thank you for hanging out with us on the podcast as well as TikTok. And we're looking forward to the next one.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right. Stay cozy, everybody.